So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and the news just keeps coming. I'm going to get straight into it that Aston Villa are chasing, or whatever adjective you want to use. They seem to be really, really honing in on Calvin Bassey, Rangers left back / centre half. A bit of ambiguity as to where his best position is going to be. And I just said I wanted to pop on to have a discussion about him, see how he shapes up against the players that we have already, what he will bring to the team, and maybe look back at him, because he's a guy who is a Nigerian international now, but he was born in Italy, and he has come up through the Leicester under-23 academy, and Rangers signed him directly from the Leicester under-23 academy. And it's a really interesting one because they kind of threw him straight in to the fold last season, and he worked very, very well with Steven Gerrard, worked well with Tom Culshaw. Apparently Tom Culshaw was the man that really worked with him an awful lot last year, because for all the physical traits that he had, he needed a small bit of softening around the edges from the point of view of the finer skills of the game. And he had immediate payback in that, and you could see some of them within his game. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to take a look at him. We are going to have our statistical sheets in a moment and so on, and we're going to start with some of those. But I found a very, very good article on The Athletic, whereby they discuss the potential of Calvin Bassey, and they speak with Leicester under-23s manager Steve Beaglehole. And there's some really, really interesting comments that he had there from him about the type of guy he is, about the type of guy he was when he was coming up through the Leicester Academy. And I do want to go through some of those because I find that they're very eye-opening, I suppose, to the type of guy that he is, what strengths he has, what he's had to endure within Leicester, and now that he's gone on to Rangers, how he's been able to perform in that league. Before we talk about those, let's have a little look at what this guy actually brings to the table, or what he has brought to the table over the last 365 days, because he is he's been quite good in a lot of areas. We can see there by his heat map, Rangers have preferred to play him as a left back. He does obviously slot in as a left centre half as well. 2 years ago, or last year, should I say, he was called upon to move into that left centre half position, and he performed admirably in there. And from time to time, he is relied upon to do that too, specifically, I suppose, even since Steven Gerrard has left. But in this big run that they've been on this season, he has predominantly played in the left back position. And we can see there that he has played, and these are the statistics from Who Scored. He's played probably, equal amount of time between centre half and left back, and he's come on as a sub 11 times as well. Over the course of his tenure with Rangers. As I said, he's 6 foot and 1/2 inches. He is left-footed, and he is 22 years of age at this time. I think some of the points to mention here is that I've put in old head on young shoulders, and I suppose I mean that. What I mean by that is that he's not afraid. To get stuck in. He's a confident player. You see him. He believes that he is very good, which is something that actually comes across on the field of play, and also something that Steve Beaglehole said as well, that he can be. I'm not going to say headstrong, but he believes that he can play in certain positions, and he wants to play in certain positions. And he's really enjoying playing at left back because I think that is his preferred position to play. He's fearless with the right amount of restraint, and what I mean by that is that he's not afraid to tackle. His tackling statistics are really, really good. You can see them there; they're fantastic statistics. Albeit, I will say that the statistics here, with regards to the percentiles that we can see here, are based upon being a centre half. So the tackle statistics and everything here, when you're looking at those bars to the right-hand side, they are in comparison to all the other centre halves in the top 5 leagues in Europe. So he shows an awful lot of promise to move in to centre half, but at the moment, as I say, his numbers for being a left back are still bloody amazing as well. I just don't have the comparison to them as to the left backs in the top 5 leagues in Europe, but I do have a little exercise I will show you in a moment with regards to how he looks in comparison to Lucas Digne. We can see here, look, there's a lot of high numbers there. His pressure success rate for a centre half, you would expect it to be higher than most centre halves, considering he's played out on the left hand side an awful lot. He's had quite a lot of pressures, but I think the real takeaways for this are the amount of tackles that he attempts are up in the top 90 percentile, top 89 percentile of all defenders. But look at the amount of tackles he wins. Of 2.45 tackles per game, he wins 1.91 of those. So, when he tackles, he gets the ball. I'm 100% aware this is in Scotland. The majority of these statistics will come from the league in Scotland, but also bear in mind they come from the Europa League as well. They've had a long campaign in the Europa League as well over the last 365 days, and the statistics will be borne out there. I did try and get a cross-section of statistics to see. I may come back and I may put an addendum onto this if he does sign, so that we can see what the difference is between his league statistics and his Europa League, if that's something you guys would like. I just didn't feel it was necessary for this moment in time. So he's got his defensive statistics are really good, and he likes to defend, and he sees himself as a defender. He's a really quick player, really quick player. I suppose one downside from his defensive abilities is that, and Paddy mentioned this on a previous podcast. Paddy has seen him in the flesh twice, I think, and he's an avid watcher of Scottish football. And one of the things that Paddy seems to see about him is that he can get very grabby and handsy if people get around him. So he doesn't get dribble past an awful lot, and he doesn't get people don't get around him an awful lot, but he is very handsy at the moment. His positional sense may not be where it needs to be, and that's based on Paddy's own 2 eyes and seeing him quite often. Also, it ties into some comments that Steve Beaglehole said to the Athletic as well, which we'll get onto in a moment. So, positional sense, wanting to or knowing where to be, being that more instinctual is something that I feel that he will need to work on. But he doesn't commit an awful lot of fouls. You can see there, he only commits 0.38 fouls per game. And that to me is interesting. One slight area of concern for him is his aerial duel success at 54.3%. Puts him in the bottom quartile of centre backs within the league. But then once again, he's not tasked an awful lot with having to head the ball out there on the left wing. But as I say, you would still expect him that if he did have to head the ball, he should be winning it, specifically against wingers, but he doesn't seem to be. He only seems to be winning just over a hair over 1 in every 2. Looking at his passing stats as well, he's not the most accomplished passer in the world. So he's a defend first type of well, he's not really. He likes to go forward too. So, like you can see by his heat map there, it's just that his pass completion rate is down, is lowish. His progressive passes, his passes under pressure, all that kind of stuff. I'd probably like to see him maybe a small bit more disciplined in the pass. Now, granted as well, when these numbers are in comparison to a centre half, so a centre half would have, he should have easier passing lanes to make. We will see that with our centre halves in a moment. We will look and see if that is true, should I say, with our centre halves in the moment. And I would expect that he would have more progressive passes through the course of 90 minutes than he does, based on the fact that he does play out on the left wing, on the left-hand side. So you'd expect him to maybe linking up there with one of his midfielders, maybe one of the pivot players, maybe one of the wingers, and maybe trying to create attacks. So there are a couple of things there that, once again, he's a young guy. He's only 22. He's in his second season of senior football, should I say, and it's something that he will have to work on. He's physically really impressive. He's physically really impressive. I've put on my notes at the side there, great defensive positions and intuition. Great is incorrect. I do apologize, and I don't know how to do the edits to cross out great and put in needs to work on defensive positioning and intuition. I don't know why I've put great in there. I want to make an addendum to that, but I'm just not an editing genius to be able to do it at the moment. But the last piece there that I wanted to mention is Gerrard knows him and gave him his chance at Rangers. And I think that is, like, Gerrard has talked about people that can be accountable, people that he trusts, people that he knows are winners, or want to win. And I think that Gerrard is very much a man who will trust certain players and will like to get the best out of them. And, considering that he's got this young moldable piece of clay that Calvin Bassey is, that is something that we should bear in mind as well. So just going back as well, I mentioned there that Leicester under 23s manager Stephen Bigelhall, I think, had a great interview in The Athletic, and you can find it. You can just Google it, really, and you'll be able to find it. But he says he seems to think that Calvin Bassey will end up being a left centre half, or maybe left side of a back three. He says that he's a left back, but that he rebelled early about playing at centre back. He didn't want to play centre back. He regales of a tale where he didn't start the season previous, before he moved to Leicester, before he moved to Rangers, particularly well. And Luke Thomas had just come up to the under-23s, and he was knocking the door down. And he said to Calvin Bassey, "Listen, I'm going to play Luke Thomas in this position there. He's staying there, and I'm going to play you at centre back." And a Calvin Bassey kind of rebelled against it. He said he didn't want to play there, and basically Steve Bigelhall gave him the ultimatum and said, "Okay, then you're going to be on the bench." But he didn't like he didn't like the idea of having to move to centre half, but he did it anyway. He's a strong character. And Steve Bigelhall said he was just absolutely outstanding when he went in there. He gave him all the praise afterwards and said, you played really well in that game the first game that he played. He was outstanding. He told him he played really well. And Calvin Bassey just said, "Yeah, but I still hate it. I still hate playing centre half." And that isn't too far away, or far ago, should I say. So it's something to bear in mind, that while he can play in two positions, and obviously positional versatility is quite good, this guy sees himself as a left back, which for us as Aston Villa Football Club is good, because we need that versatility. We need somebody who's relishing the challenge to push Lucas Digne in that left back position. Steve Bigelhall also admits that he says he's still not sure whether left back or whether centre half will be his best position. He feels that, if you were to hedge his bets, that being on the left of a back three would be really good, because he played really well there as well when they played him at the under-23 level. Bigelhall says that he's as quick as anything. It's a great attribute for a centre half. There will always be a circumstance where he's the last man, and you do need that pace, and we've seen that pace. We saw it in the Europa League this season as well. And he does mention that at times Calvin Bassey maybe doesn't work hard enough to get into the positions early enough, that he relies on his pace, and that can be an exuberance of youth. Bigelhall makes a comparison as well to Harry Maguire, who didn't have any pace but had really good positioning at 18, 19, 20 years of age. When Leicester signed him and got him from Hull, they were able to get him relatively cheap, because it was thought that he didn't have the pace to succeed, but he had very, very good positioning. And he said that Calvin Bassey is probably on the flip side of that, whereby he's got really, really good pace, and he needs to work on his positioning as well. Whatever you think of Harry Maguire, Steve Bigelhall is talking about him from the point of view of when he was a lot younger player, and when they were trying to coach him and trying to mold him as well there. And he feels that sometimes, Bassey is a great example of somebody who can maybe get beaten and then tries to use their pace to get back into position. And that tallies up, I think, really with what Paddy said of what he's seen of him as well, that sometimes when he does get beaten, he relies on his pace. And if his pace is similar or less than the person he's marking, he does get handsy, and that could become an issue within the Premier League as well. Although he hasn't been called for fouls on it in the Scottish League at the moment. If I'm right in saying Scottish League don't have VAR, so maybe there could be instances like that in the Premier League whereby he doesn't get away with it. But once again, that's all speculative as well. And Steve Bigelhall says the same thing. He says, as you start to go up against first team in European football, there will be strikers as quick as you, or maybe even quicker, and that you'll get away with that at under 23s football, but not at the top level. And you need to start thinking about your positioning and so on. And I'm not saying that hasn't changed for Calvin Bassey since he has started playing senior football, specifically with Rangers. But if this guy sees himself as a left back, he's going to need to utilize that pace. And Steve Beaglehole is actually talking about him from the point of view of him moving towards the centre half position more so than staying in the left back position. So a lot of what Beaglehole is saying here is in comparison to what he feels he needs to do to succeed at centre half as well. Needless to say, Beaglehole said he was gutted when he left. He he would have been in an ideal situation if he had stayed for an extra season or another season after that, and if he was still at Leicester, because he would have got a lot of game time in the Europa League. We know that Leicester had a lot of injuries with regards to fullbacks this season, and I'm sure that if Calvin Bassey was there, he would have got his playing time in the Premier League, and a lot of playing time in the Premier League and in the Europa League. But he's played a lot in Europe as well for Rangers, and he's played an awful lot in the Scottish Premier League for Rangers as well. So his development has not in any way, shape or form been stifled from making the move. And he has made the right decision in making that move to Rangers. So let's take a little look at how he compares towards Tyrone Mings. Once again, he has more opportunities to make tackles. He's more opportunities to have pressures and so on. And you can see here that his statistics bear that out. He's a true and true defender. Obviously, this doesn't take into account the strength of league. I am going to say it again. This is not disparaging towards Scotland. I know the Scottish league does have a lot of good qualities, but Calvin Bassey would have been expected to win 99% of battles that he would have been up against somebody in the Scottish League, specifically against wingers or against strikers who pull wide. But as I say, it is interesting that these do include Europa League statistics as well. So we do have to bear them in mind and not dismiss them from that point of view also. This is what it would look like. As I say, I put him against Tyrone Mings because I'm not quite sure if he was to come in here where he would offer the best value. From the statistics here, he can play centre half, and we know that he's played centre half very, very well. So it would have been foolish of us not to put him up against Tyrone Mings with regards to statistical comparison. And you can see that he comes out positively in a lot of areas, but obviously, as I say, the aerial duel success would need to be a bit higher in comparison to where Tyrone Mings is. Tyrone Mings at 66% is still only in the top third almost of centre halves in Europe's top 5 leagues, and Calvin Bassey would have to get a lot braver, a lot better in the air if he was to move into the centre half position. And he would have to work on his progressive passing as well, I think, because that is something that when we want to have ball playing centre halves, statistically it needs to improve from basically from where he is at the moment, because his amount of progressive passes that he makes is quite low, even for a left back. Looking at him in comparison to Ezri Konsa as well, it's very much the same. Aerial duel success is an area that he is beaten on, and also the fact that he gets dribble past is something that Ezri Konsa is in a better position for. Don't take away that Konsa and Mings have been absolutely poor in comparison to Calvin Bassey. I've made all the caveats that I need to make with regards to strength of schedule, strength of league, and also the fact that Calvin Bassey, his numbers and his percentiles here are based on being a centre half. Whereas he's played a lot of games at left back, and as you can see, the reason it's centre half is because he's played more games at centre half this season, but just marginally. It's pretty much a 50-50 split, so it gives an unfair advantage in a lot of areas for Calvin Bassey, because if you think about it, pressure rates, he's going to pressure people more because he's going to have the freedom, and he doesn't need to be as disciplined to stay back and to hold his position. He can go and pressure people as well. He can have more tackles. He's going to be tasked with having more tackles out in the wing to stop people getting past him, and little pieces like that. So it's not a direct apples for apples comparison. I'm just very, very quickly going to run through here what he looks like with Ruben Diaz, just keeping it as a standardized piece. Ruben Diaz is the control player that I've been selecting for all my centre half comparisons this season. And we can see here that, the exact same areas here, aerial duel success and dribble past. It just goes to show that as a centre half, he's going to need to improve in those areas if he is going to succeed within the Premier League. And also, we know that Ruben Diaz is one of the best passers of the ball as centre half in world football, if not one of the best centre halves in world football. So it's quite interesting to see the split in the numbers there. Now, I want to look at him with regards to Lucas Digne as well. And you notice I haven't done the red and the green piece here because, as I say, the numbers, it's not an apples for apples comparison, I suppose, in relation to a lot of things here. But what you can see is that the pressure success rates that Calvin Bassey puts up in comparison to Lucas Digne are night and day. It's almost double scores when we're looking at that. You can see the amount of tackles he puts in, the tackles he's won. That kind of percentage is an awful lot better. And once again, as I say, I'm going to keep on saying it, strength of schedule, strength of league is a factor with regards to this. And when we look at his passing statistics, you look at the progressive passing rate here once again. He's got a better pass completion rate than Lucas Digne, but the progressive passing numbers here are something that you need to look at. You know, Lucas Digne is passing over twice the amount of Calvin Bassey, and if he is going to come into the Premier League, we would be tasking him with doing that, being a more attacking minded fullback and getting us up the field a bit quicker. So also, I just wanted to show something here. You'll be able to see that the lines that are shown here are denoted by the colours of the players' names here. So we've got Calvin Bassey in the claret colour, Lucas Digne in the red colour, Tyrone Mings in the orange colour, and Ezri Konsa in the green colour. And what I wanted to show here is the difference, I suppose, in what the focus areas for an awful lot of centre halves and left backs are. So when we talk about somebody who's interchangeable for left back and centre half, for me, when we look at Calvin Bassey here, his statistics bear out more towards playing as a left back as well. When you look at it here, based on this graph here, you can see that his tackles won, pressures and blocks and interceptions are up there with anything that we have in the team. And once again, I don't need to say about my caveats as to why potentially that could be the reason. But it is an interesting comparison to see that, look, if you're expecting the numbers for Calvin Bassey and our two centre halves to be similar, they won't be, because centre halves are a lot more compact. They always have a lot more compact spider grams like this, and fullbacks will have a more vast array of numbers that they can put up because of the freedom that they're given to engage people and to not be as disciplined. And I know disciplined is a word that can be overly used, but as a centre half, you do have to hold your position more, and you have to be more aware of what's happening. As a fullback, you should be as well, but you do have more opportunities to engage and to tackle. Lastly, just to take a look at some of the advanced defensive statistics of where Calvin Bassey does make tackles and so on. He doesn't tackle in the attacking third. As I say, he's not a massively attacking minded. He does get forward, but he's not a hugely attacking minded left back at the moment, or in this Rangers team. His pressures are very, very good. He pressures throughout the course of the whole field as well. And when we look at his pass completion stats, they do need to be a bit better. He relies on making high passes, which are longer range passes, not passes on the ground. And I think if he comes into the Premier League and he comes into the Steven Gerrard mold, that's something that he will have to work on. And it was something he was working on with Tom Culshaw before they did move mid-season this season. So that is something that I have seen read, I have seen written, and it was actually in that Athletic article as well. So it's he's an interesting player. He's got a lot of raw tools. He's got a lot of physical traits and physical abilities. He's done a lot of things right in his career so far, and he is somebody that is worth keeping an eye on should he come to Aston Villa. And I think initially when he does come to Aston Villa, he's going to be a left back competition, with the ability to move in centre half if needed. That would be my view on it. I don't know what price range they're talking about for somebody like Calvin Bassey. I don't know. I don't even know what a fair price would be for him. I would imagine maybe somewhere in and around the 12 to 15 to 17 million mark. I couldn't put a price on him because of his small sample set at the minute. But I mean, no Rangers fans might be watching this and going, "Oh, we want 40 million for him." That could quite be the case. I don't know, but I don't think that. I think the Aston Villa will have their set fee for this, and I don't think they will go above it. And if they do, then move on to somebody else, and they maybe move on to somebody like an Aaron Hickey as well, another Scottish left back, who for me is a truer left back. And if we weren't going for the utility guy or the guy who's a bit more positionally diverse, I think Aaron Hickey would be probably, if I had to pick between the two, I think I'd probably err on the side of Aaron Hickey if I had to pick one over the other. But Calvin Bassey still has an awful lot of plus points that we can look at. He's highly thought of, and he seems to be somebody who improves year on year on year on year. So wherever he can go is basically his own. Wherever he can go within his career or over the course of his career is basically within his decision and how hard he wants to work to get there, because he seems to have that work ethic and that drive the top players need to have. So that is Calvin Bassey, somebody Villa seem to be very, very highly in on, and he seems to definitely be on Villa's transfer list. Whether it happens or not, we will find out in due course over the next weeks and months. If he does come to Aston Villa, we'll dive into him a small bit more, and we will. But at the moment, as I say, I will be pleasantly happy with him coming in. I think he's got a lot of development points that are needed to be worked on, but his natural ability and his natural physical attributes are like you can't teach those, and there is something in that I think that we should look at, and I think that would be highly sought after throughout the course of this transfer window. So as always, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for listening. Please give this a thumbs up if you're listening to it on the audio podcast. Please give us a 5-star review and give us a written review if you haven't done so already. If you're not signed up to the audio podcast, I would implore that you really do sign up to it and subscribe to it. You can do it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcasts. You can sign up to it and just subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything to do so, and we would really appreciate it because it really helps out the podcast. So that's Calvin Bassey, somebody Villa seem to be very, very heavily interested in. We will see where this goes. But until the next time, when we are back with our next transfer show, all that's really left to say is stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, up the Villa.